YouTube, how's it going? The Goat House is back after week one of the NFL. On to week two. Really excited to move forward here. And we got week two power rankings right here. We'll update this every single week. Very important. My power rankings aren't predictions. I see a lot of people's power rankings look like end of the year predictions. That's not how I do it here. We're updating these every single week. So if teams win, they will climb. If teams lose, they will fall. So that's how my power rankings work, not predictions. And at the end of the video, we'll show kind of the movement. Teams move up this many spots. Teams that move down this many spots. Maybe they stay the same. And sometimes I think people focus on one team. Like, how did this team only move up this many spots? Or how did this team move up a spot if they lost? Sometimes it'll happen. I wouldn't focus on that one team. It's what's around them, what's happening around them. There's 32 teams. There's not just one. So not predictions. Focus on all 32 here, and we'll update these every single week. Excited for week two here. We'll have our weekly picks tonight. We'll have score predictions for every single game all year and plenty more. So they can subscribe, trying to reach 60K. Hopefully you turn notifications on so you don't miss a thing here during the year because we got you covered. Follow that Twitter, nonstop NFL action on there, always talking through games live, giving you takeaways, thoughts, everything. Follow that Twitter, Instagram, podcast, Patreon. Link in the description in the comments for any of those things that you see there. And then we take a look at this Patreon, and a lot of content going on there as well. I do my score predictions here on the channel every week. Junior will do his on the Patreon every single game, every single week. I have my locks of the week, so spread picks, over-unders, things like that. And I have my top 25 college football score predictions. Updated playoff predictions will start in a few weeks, and it will happen every single week. Bonus content, much more, Discord access. You get the drill. Link in the description in the comments for everything that you need. To the power rankings, I'm really tiny down here in the bottom right corner. Not enough room for me, but that's all right. I got the Jets at 32. I think pretty obvious. I think the week one, it's only week one. You can't overreact. You can't really predict the future off of week one. But with power rankings that are updated every single week, you pretty much, especially here in week two, we really only have one thing to base it off of, and that's week one here. So the Jets look like the worst team in football in week one. Looked pretty sloppy. There's some upside there. Maybe they can clean some things up. But a pretty brutal outing for the Jets and some of the teams that were kind of in the same area were more impressive, and some of them got wins, actually. So it shouldn't be too much of a surprise. The Jets coming in at 32. Number 31 is actually going to be the Dolphins. So they moved down a few spots. At the end of the video, we'll see how many spots these teams move, but based on my week one power rankings. But the Dolphins, yeah, they didn't really impress me too much. Defense was solid. Jerome Baker really stood out, but there was really nothing because some teams lost, and there were some things that kind of impressed me. There really wasn't too much, as units or as, one side of the ball that impressed me for the Dolphins. Only week one. We'll see if Fitzpatrick get it going there, but you see two AFC East teams here starting, after we got started here. They're starting on the bottom here, 31 and 32. Moving on to number 30, the Bengals. The Bengals actually impressed me on defense a little bit. You can't take too much from that because they played the Chargers offense, but they played better than expected on defense. Joe Burrow had his moments, good moments, bad moments. They definitely need to get a little more going on offense, a little underwhelming there, but the offensive line, which was the concern, predicting for the season, still the concern. So they find themselves at 30, need a little more offense there. 29 is going to be the Browns. So you see the Browns. We shouldn't see the Browns down here. It's only week one, so definitely not time to panic. We shouldn't see the Browns down here. They did play the Ravens, but it was a pretty brutal loss, regardless who they played. You expected more offense. You definitely expected more offense. 6 points is, downright pathetic, honestly. The defense, I expected to be a weaker defense. You did play maybe the best offensive football, but either way, it doesn't matter. It had a very poor outing, very disappointing that offense. 29, 30, they play each other Thursday Night Football. That's a big game. It may not look like it because it's 29-30, but it's only week one, and it's only been 1 week, and it's an important game there. So two AFC East teams and then two AFC North teams to start the week two power rankings. 28 to me, the Panthers. I was impressed with the offense. I expected to be impressed with the offense in this week, but that helps them from plummeting, down the power rankings here. But yeah, the defense kind of as expected, pretty poor, and I expected to struggle this year. But a game they could have won, and that we would see a way different rank possibly here. But that defense ain't cutting it. But the offense was impressive, so that's why maybe the difference between the Panthers and the Browns. Browns didn't really impress me in any way. Panthers had a little bit of impressive offense there, but was expected. 27 is going to be the Giants, and if you're keeping track, again, we'll show the movement, who went up, who went down. The Giants actually, for losing, moved up one spot, and again, you kind of got to pay attention to what's going around them. But I was actually kind of impressed with the Giants. They got the end score really won't show. If you watch every snap, you'll understand what I'm saying. They moved the ball quite well. There were some unfortunate moments. Only a couple moments that really kind of turned that around. They could have won the game here, and that's impressive. So I think, I think that's the first sneeze I've ever had while recording. I usually don't edit my videos. I kind of just go with it, give you the real thing here. And it's the first time all the videos I've done, the first time I ever sneezed. We're moving on. The Giants, Daniel Jones. Okay, this is weird because Daniel Jones, I kept saying he's impressing me. I was impressed. That interception at the TJ Watt interception, that was just a ridiculous, freaky, instinctive play by TJ Watt. I'm not going to blame Daniel Jones too much for that one. The next interception cost them the game. They could have won that game, and it was a bad one. But he was on target most of the day. That was just a simple case of a young guy making a mistake. Just throw the ball away earlier there. I think that can be fixed. Rather than a guy that has accuracy issues like nonstop as a young player, you can slightly tweak those things. Those things really don't get fixed. I was actually impressed by Daniel Jones in this game. The defense, I expect to be, maybe the worst defense in football right there with the Panthers. I'm still worried about it. They played pretty well, actually. So they moved up the spot, and it's really not so much because they impressed me. They just didn't do bad enough for me to drop them, but at the same time, pay attention to the other teams that have moved down. There was definitely teams we had to drop that played much worse than the Giants there. So that was kind of the reason they actually moved up a spot. 26 is the Colts. Now, again, I'm not predicting anything with these power rankings. I update them weekly. You impress me, you play well, you win, you move up, and the opposite, you move down. We're only through 1 week here. They lost to the team I had at 32 to start the year, and you kind of look at it, and the Jags didn't do anything special there. They threw for 170 or so yards, and barely even ran the ball. Ran the ball for 90 total yards, and they still scored 27 points to beat the Colts. So that is a bad thing there. It's a rough week here. So the Colts definitely, no reason why they shouldn't be down here after that one. But a team I expect to get better as the season goes on. Phillip Rivers got to take care of the ball though. But they just go out and win, they'll climb back up there. The Jags at 25, and debating in my head about this one because I really do think the Colts, and we'll see, the Jags could be sneaky. They're impressive. I really do think the Colts will be the better team when it's all said and done. But you can't say that now. That's just a prediction. That's just an assumption there. You can't say that now. The Jags didn't, felt like they didn't give, everything they had on offense as well. Like I said, only a limited amount of attempts, even passing, even rushing, a limited amount of attempts in general, a little amount of yards, and they still won the game. And they definitely outplayed them most of this game. So there's no reason that you can't put there's no reason to have the Colts ahead of the Jags right now. So the Jags coming in at number 25. Still want to see more. I still want to see more from them to boost them up. 24, the Lions. Another tough one to rank because the Lions outplayed their opponent. They look like they can still throw the ball. Stafford's good, in there obviously. Threw the ball pretty well on a good defense. They outplayed their opponent. And, maybe you shouldn't punish them too much for this, but they outplayed their opponent for 3 out of 4 quarters, and they still lost. So that's a tough one. That's something I'm thinking about, waking up this morning, rethinking about some of these games is, if I made this ranking fresh off that Sunday loss, which I'll never do because none of the games are done, I probably wouldn't have dropped them this much because I felt like, I took away some good things mainly. Like they looked pretty good for the most part while missing some guys. It's a game they should have won. But, yeah, that's the thing I'm starting to think about now is they outplayed their opponent for 3 quarters and they lost still. What happens if they don't outplay their opponent for 3 quarters. Just 2. They're going to get beat every time, and that was just the Bears too. So had to move them down, but at full strength, I do think this is a talented team, so I could not move them to the bottom tier of teams. They're very close, really. 23 is the Washington football team. Very impressive, beating a pretty good team. That team, the Eagles, they were not at full strength, but pretty impressive from Washington. I think, that pass rush was ridiculous as expected. It's going to be a really good defense because of that. But what stood out is the offense started to pick it up. I think early in the game, what was the main reason, they were losing 17-0? And easy answer is Carson Wentz was making plays rather than, later he was not making plays. He was actually doing quite the opposite of that. But why? Why was that happening? I talked about this in the recap video. Washington offense couldn't really move the ball. The defense was constantly on the field. It was that same really good defense when they were giving up points compared to when they weren't giving up points. It was the same, but they were constantly on the field when they were, giving up those points. Therefore, they were getting tired. Therefore, it is easier for Carson Wentz to make those plays. Washington football team's offense started to move the ball a little bit. Nothing crazy. They did score a bunch of unanswered points, but they started to move the ball. Easier job for the defense, harder job for Carson Wentz. So that was actually the impressive thing because I expected that pass rush to be that good. I didn't expect them to get that many interceptions, but I think credit goes to the pass rush on that. But the offense started to pick it up. Still need to see more from the offense. It should get better as the season goes on, though. That could be the scary thing. So they're on the way up. Definitely a team you want to see more from. The Falcons at 22, if you're keeping track, again, I promise I'll show who moved up, how many spots moved down, how many spots at the very end. But the Falcons only moved down 1 spot. I am kind of pissed about, at the Falcons because it just felt like the same exact, it's only 1 week, but it felt like the same exact team from last year. And that is the offense starting too slow. We know what we're going to get from the defense. Yeah, it needs to be better, but it's not something you can snap your finger and just expect or it can happen. This team is an offensive team, and we've seen the explosiveness when they're coming from behind when they when they start going, but you got to start strong. That is the difference. So same old team, only move them down 1 spot because there is some hope there with that offense. There is some hope. They had some moments where the defense played okay. Got to start off good, though, and they played a very good team in the Seahawks. So Falcons only down 1 spot, but I'm a little scared about them. 21 is the Chargers. Move up a few spots. It wasn't really a pretty win still. There really wasn't any offense. They started to get going a little bit. I did feel like they could move the ball, though. They can move the ball at about midfield, and then it kind of shut down. I questioned some of the play calling. It felt like they were, hesitant to let Tyrod Taylor play his game. They let Phillip Rivers do whatever he wanted last year, and he turned the ball over. And now Tyrod Taylor, they're kind of restricting him, and it's confusing. It's a little confusing. It makes sense if they had more trust in Rivers because he was their guy for so long. First-year starter for Tyrod Taylor. But yeah, you had like 3rd and longs, and you had 2-yard quick slants. Plays like that. And going away from Eckler too much. Josh Kelly was impressive, but going away from Eckler too much, I question the play calling mainly. Unleash Tyrod Taylor. You're not going to win anything doing that. You could have a pretty good defense. You can have some good small ball moments. You are not going anywhere doing that. So they could be better. I think there's more in there for the Chargers. And this means very little, but it's just something that's in my mind. The back of my mind means very, very little. Last year preseason, Tyrod Taylor was launching the ball downfield. It's preseason, that's why I say it means very little. But he was throwing the ball downfield, and it looked like, in the back of my mind, I kind of said then, Tyrod Taylor might be able to start for this team. And it's something that's been in the back of my mind for some time. Again, you can't base too much off that at all. But my point is, let the man play. They had some shots to Mike Williams. I like that. But, get Keenan Allen involved more, too. So they move up a little bit, but, it wasn't the best win, but it was a win at the end of the day in week 1, which is all you can ask for. 20 is going to be the Eagles. Yeah, I still have them over some teams that won because they weren't at full strength. The game they probably should have won still. But yeah, Washington team outplayed them in that game. But it's just so hard to move the Eagles down any further in this because they were really not even that close to full strength. And I know they have more, and we've seen the glimpses of it. But that's why it's tough to rank teams just off of 1 week here, but went with the Eagles at 20 and pretty much in the same boat. A team that I think is definitely better than that. Pretty much Aaron Rodgers just happened, and that's really what I say. I'm a Vikings fan. People ask me, come up to me and ask me what happened to the Vikings. Really, all I can say is Aaron Rodgers happened. Defense played pretty poor. I wish the offense would have got going a little earlier for the Vikings. I questioned some play calling, but there's got to be better, plain and simple. I'm not super worried. If we're talking like long term down the season, I'm not really that confident, going on a playoff run or anything like that. But the team has talent. But probably it should be better than number 19 team, but a pretty bad outing mainly for that defense there against the Packers at number 19. But the offense really got going at one point, at least something you can take away from that. 18 is going to be the Bears. Yeah, I wasn't really sure what to do with the Bears because the Bears, honestly, it was a game the Bears should have lost. They were very fortunate to win that game. It's pretty much the opposite of the Lions. If I made these rankings right off that loss, I probably wouldn't have dropped the Lions as far, and I probably wouldn't have put the Bears as far up from where they were, just because there really wasn't too much that impressed me from the Bears. Their defense actually was a little underwhelming. Stafford was able to throw on them. But then what I come back to is they played pretty sloppy early. They kind of fixed those things, it felt like, for the most part. We'll see if it's fixed for good. And they only played well for one quarter, and they still won. To me, that shows some upside. And I know the defense can play better. I almost expect the offense. I don't know what to expect. I can't really expect it to play. You can't really expect it to play as bad as it did early in the game, but you can't really expect it to play as good as it did in the fourth quarter. So I don't know what to expect there. The defense, I can expect to play better. So at the end of the day, the defense can get better. They played one quarter, and they still won the game against the division rivals. So that at the end of the day here, I'm moving them up quite a bit there. And then that means they come in second in the NFC North going into week 2 here. And you see quite the difference, early. It's only week 1, but early in the, in offseason, I said, it's not 25% all, but pretty close to that. But now the Packers really separate themselves. We'll see them in a little bit. Broncos at 17, if you're keeping track. I actually only moved them down one spot. And it's really because what's going on around them. They did lose, but at the same time, there was really no bad takeaways, from the Broncos. They made some crucial mistakes, but just sloppy week 1 things. I'm impressed with Drew Lock. I think he's got a bright future. He did miss some open throws here, like back. I'm not really too worried. Melvin Gordon fumbled. I'm a little concerned about his fumbling issues. They weren't really full strength, missing some guys there, and they played a pretty good team tight. So there's more impressive things, I think, than negative things. There was some sloppy plays, but it's not, So I can't really move the Broncos down too much there, even though they're starting 0-1. 16, the Raiders. Raiders, not the best defensive performance, but they played a pretty sneaky good offense there in the Panthers. Offense was very impressive, but almost expected against the Panthers defense. But at the end of the day, you're not going to penalize a team. You're not going to hurt a team here for beating a bad defense. They looked smooth. They looked really good there. Got a lot of people involved. So, I moved them in the top 16 there after a good first week there. Number 15 is going to be the Patriots. Good week 1 to start here, beating the Dolphins. Good to see Cam Newton moving around a bit. Defense played very well. That secondary came up clutch again. One of the better ones in football. Well-coached team as expected. Definitely want to see more here, but they're starting off pretty impressive, so they're into the top 15 here for the Patriots. 14 is going to be the Texans. Yeah, starting with a loss, they played maybe the best team in football, and they're really it's one of the weird ones too, because there really isn't any positive takeaways off that, but I just can't move this team further down than this because I think it's still a pretty good team. And what happened? The Chiefs happened in this one. So, I'm sticking them at 14. They did move down a little bit from that though. Number 13, we got the Cowboys. Yeah, pretty disappointing one. I did move them down a bit. I got high hopes for the Cowboys at the end of the season. I still kind of do. Some injuries popped up. That's unfortunate. They missed Leo Collins in that game. That showed quite a bit there. They couldn't really get anything going on offense due to the Rams' very good defensive play. But mainly the offensive line didn't protect them too well. I think the key thing was Leo Collins there. But yeah, another situation. Aaron Donald happened in this game, but that Rams secondary deserves credit as well. It's still a good team. They still played an okay game, a game they could have won there. So you can't move them down too much, but they do move down to 13. 12 is going to be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Similar situation, a little disappointed. It's a very similar situation. I got high hopes for the Buccaneers later in the year. Same thing for both teams. Buccaneers, Cowboys. I almost expected I expected the Cowboys to win, actually, but knew it could go either way. The Buccaneers, I had a feeling they would lose that game, but I almost expected both those teams to start off a little slow, but they'll get going. But that's an assumption, so I'm not going to keep them up where I had them because of that, because I don't think that's how power rankings work. So they moved down, a little sloppy play from the Buccaneers. They were in New Orleans against a really good team there. So, I think the positive is with all that sloppy moments, they were actually in the game at times. So that's maybe a positive takeaway. So they're at number 12. Number 11 is the Steelers. A good win to start the year off here. I only move up one spot. Mainly the top 10, what's going around them. You can't really move those teams down just because the Steelers in some of these cases. Steelers weren't super impressive in that one. You should handle the Giants. It is week 1, but you should handle the Giants. The Giants actually, Steelers defense was clutch again. They made some big time plays in big moments. The run defense was elite. It was ridiculous in that game, so credit to them. But the Giants didn't move the ball pretty efficiently, I thought. They just couldn't get in the end zone. And against that defense, they started to move the ball a little better in the second half, but you expect them to kind of move that a little more. So, impressive in ways, but not overly impressive where I can boost them over some of the other teams that did some really good things. So they move up one spot there and come in at number 11. Number 10 is going to be the 49ers, so a team that did lose. I couldn't drop them out of the top 10. They did move down quite a bit, though. And I thought this team played pretty well, except at the quarterback position. It was definitely a winnable game, even though Garoppolo played pretty sloppy. But everything else, I thought they played pretty well. And again, a game they should have won. So, yeah, you can't penalize this team too much. I mean, they're starting the year off with a loss, so you have to move them down here in a game they probably should win. But for the most part, they played pretty well in most spots. So I couldn't penalize them too much. So they come in at number 9 or number 10. Number 9 is the Cardinals, who they played. The Cardinals, interesting one. There's some good, some bad. The offense started off pretty dead. It kind of took the blocked punt to get going. That's kind of the bad. The good is they only played a half of good offense there, and they still won the game against the defending NFC champions. In a rival team here in San Francisco. So there's some bad, not too bad, but there's some really good there from the game. So an impressive first win. So they get boosted up. They're on to number 9. Number 8, huge boost from the Rams. Cardinals, Rams, I was in the same boat with them. Big wins in week 1. The Cardinals may have beat a team a little higher that started in week 1. The Rams were actually a little more impressive, I thought, full game. A lot of offense early. It kind of got quiet in the second half, though, so that's kind of similar to the Cardinals, where they started slow. I think the Rams were trying to put the game away, though, at times. But the defense really impressed me. This is kind of the difference in the Cardinals and the Rams. What stood out the most, they both stood out a lot, but the Rams defense really stood out. An excellent performance. They lose Fowler, they lose Littleton, so you think the defense takes a hit, but that secondary is growing and getting better. Aaron Donald, somehow it feels like he's getting better. This was a very good performance from this defense, and the offense showed some moments there too that they can get things going. So I wish they would have a little more offensively, but I was very impressed with this Rams team. It's something that you still question to keep up. We know they'll be a tough opponent for anybody every single week. We know they'll be in contention in the playoffs, but some of you question a little bit because the offensive line, going into the season, kind of predicting it to be bottom tier, especially the way, what happened last year. But sometimes those offensive lines don't show themselves early. So that's why you kind of question the long run there. How will it hold up? But they did look better, just the way they were moving and things. So overall, very impressed with the Rams, mainly their defense. They move up to number 8. That's a big gain right there from where they were. The Bills at number 7. Yeah, they probably played the worst team in football. They made them look like the worst team in football, though. Some impressive things from the Bills. Some things that, the bad thing is the way this game was going, they really should have won by an insane amount of points. Nowhere near what the score showed. Way more points for them, and in terms of the differential, less points for the Jets. So there was some sloppy moments I'm not super worried about, but they dominated this game. Looked pretty impressive while doing it on both sides of the ball, so that's great. So they get a good boost here. They move themselves well inside of the top 10. Number 6, they're staying put. Not the most impressive one to the Titans, some sloppy moments. A game that, a lot of people actually say that the Titans should have won a little easier, and you can definitely argue they can win that case because of the missed field goals. But I kind of look at the other side. I thought the Titans caught some breaks as well. The Broncos caught breaks with the field goals. I actually think the Titans caught some breaks too because, the Broncos had some wide open throws kind of missed that were kind of crucial. I thought Locke was okay, but it could have been, before that fourth down stop earlier in the game, could have been 7 on the board. Judy dropped some crucial balls. They had a penalty on an interception. They had that fumble, so I could go both ways there. So I wasn't super impressed with the Titans, but it is a good team. They played a good deal. I think matchup-wise, the Broncos got a pretty good matchup against them. So they came out of that with a win. So there's definitely no reason to move them down, but there is definitely no reason to move them up as well. So that's why I stay put there. 5, the Packers move up quite a bit. You kind of question them because they didn't make too many changes. They didn't really get better in terms of additions in the offseason. I'm still really mad at them about that because I think this team's another number 1 receiver away from being. I think you talk about a team where you can just add one player to their team, one player. Which team would get the most boost, and what would that player in position be? I think it'd be the Packers, and I think it'd be another number 1 receiver there. They actually had some plays left on the field because some drop balls there, drop touchdowns. And you look at first-round pick, Jordan Love, which I'm still okay with it for the future. He's got potential, especially learning behind Aaron Rodgers. That's QB3 to start the year. And A.J. Dillon, I did not like that pick at the time. That's running back. Even though he got some action, that's running back 3 to start the year. You drafted 2 third stringers to start the season. So that stuff really, it pisses me off, really. It gets to me. But they soar up because Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams, couple of bad men there. They played outstanding. And that really gets you excited, no matter who you're a fan of, seeing vintage Aaron Rodgers. And I kind of said that in the offseason. I could actually see, and it's only 1 week, but I actually could see a better Aaron Rodgers. And Aaron Rodgers didn't do that last year. He didn't do that. He didn't play bad, not even close to bad. I'm not saying that, but that was something else. Getting the ball out of his hands quick, perfect throws. This offense could be back to deadly. LaFleur in the second year here. Defense gave up some points, but they were pretty comfortable early third, so it's not something you can panic. Kenny Clark did come out too, so it's not something you can panic about or anything like that. That's a big time win for the Packers. They move up to number 5 there. Number 4, Seattle Seahawks. No movement. Good win against the Falcons. They were letting Russell Wilson throw on first, second down. You'd love to see that. So what does that create? I always like their game plan too. They pound the ball at Chris Carson, wore teams out, then unleashed Russell Wilson. It made so much sense, but it started to get a little predictable. So now they're keeping teams thinking, when they're watching the film. So I love that. Starting the year like that, I love it. Jamal Adams played a great game. Even though the Falcons got a bunch of yards and not a bunch of points, but a good amount of points, I'm not really super worried there either, kind of just like the Packers. They came late. I think maybe more of garbage time point. I hate using that term though, but it kind of was like that a bit. And the key against the Falcons is play good defense early, make that offense start slow, get a lead, and that's exactly what the Seattle Seahawks did. But they're going to stay at number 4. There's definitely obviously no reason to move them down. Maybe if the Packers just shut down the Vikings defensively, then maybe the Seahawks could have moved down from when the Titans just dominated completely, just blew out the Broncos. Those are situations that could happen. I can't really predict, but it could happen. But but not enough to move them up. Just not because of what they did. They play a really good game, but the team's ahead of them there, so they stay put. And then we got the Saints at number 3. That's a big time win against the Buccaneers. A game I expected them to win, but that's a really good Buccaneers team there. The defense. It's a good defense, good offense. The Saints were able to still put a bunch of points. It felt like, Breeze, Kamara, Michael Thomas left some plays on the field there, and they still scored 34 points. So that's kind of a positive takeaway in a way. Some people may look at it negative, but they all around they played very well. They're staying at number 3. It's just like the Seahawks. There's really no reason for them to have movement. Ravens at 2, dominant performance against the Browns. I expected the Browns to score more points. Nothing surprising there from Lamar Jackson. The Ravens for me. I know there's some people out there that are probably surprised at Lamar Jackson, but nothing for me. Exactly the offensive performance I expected. Maybe not exactly. Maybe running game, the actual running backs didn't really get going too much. Not really worried though. And then, defensively, that's where it was very impressive. I expect the Browns to score more points. So the Ravens, very impressive performance, enough to put them to 1, but then again, you can't really you can't move the Chiefs down. They play a really good team, the Texans, the opener of the season, and they played dominant game. Another team, felt like they didn't need. Mahomes didn't really leave any plays in the field. They just didn't really need to use him fully, or even Tyreek Hill, and they still dominated that game. It's a dominant team. There's no reason to move them down, obviously, after that win. But I think the Ravens played well enough to be known as the number one team. I just think there's two number one teams. I think I talked about it in the recap video. I think, week one, a lot of, and we could talk about here, we'll show this here. But week one, a lot of random things usually happen. You can't really predict the future off it. But there was something that was not random. Who were the most dominant teams? I think I put the very top tier, the Chiefs and the Ravens, and then the tier right under them, really close, I put the Saints, Seahawks, and the Packers. And those do not sound like random teams to me. So that's an interesting takeaway there. And those are your top five teams. You see some movement. The Jets moved on one because the Jags were down there, and the Jags won, and the Jets played like the worst team in football. And the Dolphins moved down 4 spots. Like I said, maybe a team like the Bengals, defensively, they impressed me a little bit. The Dolphins, maybe in a way, the defensively as well, but I thought the Dolphins did enough bad things to kind of move down that many spots. The Browns moved down that many spots because I do think they're a better team than some of the teams around them. That's an assumption, and that's really not how I work with my power rankings. But yeah, they're moving down 4 spots because I was not impressed with anything there. Panthers, at least I was impressed with the offense. The Giants actually moved down 1 spot, but you look at the teams that I thought were a little more disappointing was mainly the reason the Giants moved up. I felt like the Panthers, those teams below the Giants had to move below them. There was actually some positive takeaways from the Giants. The Colts lost to my number 32 team. I don't think that team did anything special either. It's a game the Colts should win. The Jags impressive. They move up. Lions choked the game away. You see Washington and the Jags. They move up 7 spots. Throwing the Patriots at 15, 7 spots up. Those are the big movers in a good way of the week. Washington was impressive. Minor movement for the Falcons, Chargers. You definitely need to see more from them. Vikings and Eagles with the Colts. Those are the biggest losers of the week, it looks like. So the Colts down 6. It makes sense. They lost to number 32 there. The Vikings, a poor defensive performance. The Eagles lose to a team they shouldn't lose to, even though they weren't full strength. All those teams down 6. Pretty good movement for the Bears, up 5. Was hesitant about that, though, because, again, it's a game they were kind of fortunate to win. But then the positive takeaway is they only played 1 quarter, and they still won the game. Not much for the Broncos. You see that teams like the Niners, Bucks, Cowboys, and Texans move down quite a bit, but they're still in a pretty good spot there. They're still in the top half for sure because I think they're good teams. You see big movement from the Cardinals at 6. I mentioned the teams that move up 7 were the biggest movers, but I was actually wrong. The second biggest move, the Rams, moved up from 17 to 8. Very impressed with that defense. Very impressive win for them. Could use a little more offense, but there were some things, good things to take away from there. 9 spots up for the Rams after it is only week 1, but we need to see more from all of these teams. Bills up a good amount of spots. Packers up a good amount of spots. Dominant win. Not much move for the top 4 teams, and including number 6 team, the Titans. So really shouldn't be anything surprising there, but if you look at, I happen to just take a look, just I'm just curious, other people's experts' power rankings, and it feels like they're predicting the future there. I disagree with that strongly. These are updated every single week. You win, you go up. You lose, you go down. You play good, you go up. You impress, you go up. Things like that. I think that makes sense to me. So your team just got to go out and win. And then they'll move up my power rankings. Pretty much all there is. So hopefully you enjoyed it. Please smash the like button if you did. We'll be back with these every single week. We'll update these every single week. We also have our weekly picks every Tuesday night with the boys. I got my score predictions every single Wednesday, and we got plenty more content, plenty more always being added. So subscribe, turn notifications on. You won't regret it. That's going to do it for this one. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.